Chapter 57. There's no place like home. Keith met me at the door and we kissed. We kissed like I'd been gone 2 years instead of 2 weeks. We kissed like Solomon and Sheba. We kissed like that very first night. My suitcase had barely touched the floor before we were in bed, doing our level best to make 2 weeks worth of love. After, sweaty and spent and a little bit sore, I snuggled as close to Keith's big warm body as I could without becoming a tattoo on his chest. Being with Keith again was sweeter than ever. I could hardly hold him tightly enough, kiss him deeply enough. My heart beat the drum line to doo-wah-diddy-diddy. My veins ran melted butter. I couldn't stop smiling. I was home. How could I have thought staying with Keith was a mistake? True, he was jealous of me, more than a bit possessive of me. What greater compliment, I thought, wiggling my butt against Keith's resting dick, feeling it stir, than that this big, strong, beautiful monster of a man should be jealous of me. Only a prize asshole could but be delighted at the prospect of being possessed by such as Keith. And if our career goals and temperaments did not always dovetail, what of it? Did not opposites attract? Most assuredly they did. I thought, studying Keith's big, pale arms against my darker, smaller one. Indeed they did. And if Keith was a notorious homebody, much more likely to be in his own living room reading Norman Mailer by the fireside on a Saturday night than on either side of any nightclub stage, was it not possible that it was this very trait that made Keith exactly what I needed in a husband? Just what the doctor ordered, as Clara used to say. Someone to see that I didn't get too far out there, even as I made sure he didn't become too stodgy. Someone to keep my feet safely on terra firma, even as my head was in the sky. Someone to give my life balance as I balanced his. Someone to be my anchor, to be my home. Keith gave me a hard, full body all-over hug. God, I missed you, he whispered. I could scarcely remember ever feeling so good. It was going to work out. Everything was going to be all right. Good day, sunshine. And so 2 weeks following Las Vegas quickly began to bear a striking family resemblance to the weeks that preceded Las Vegas. I went to work, I came home, I sang in clubs, I loved Keith. This was my life, and I was happy. Tired, but happy. And I assumed Keith was happy too. I suppose this was something of a large-scale assumption on my part, but what could I do? He never told me he was unhappy, and what choice had I but to take his word for it? True, I was as often away from home as before. More often, since we were hired on for Thursday nights at the Blue Dahlia as well as Wednesdays, but I spent as much time with Keith as I possibly could. Running home right after gigs, keeping rehearsals short, spending less and less time just hanging out with Snooki. Our lovemaking, when we could schedule it, was better than ever. Keith clutching me to him as if he had never planned to let me go. Maybe I was just slightly less observant of Keith's feelings, of his moods. Maybe I was a tad insensitive. Perhaps I should have taken more notice when Keith grew less communicative. Taken a minute to ask myself if something was wrong instead of telling myself the big guy was just having his period and running off to rehearsal. I don't know. Maybe I had no right to be surprised when, one October Saturday morning, as I was frying 8 slices of bacon for breakfast, feeling as contented as a carnation cow, an orange juice glass fell, or perhaps was pushed, to its demise on the kitchen floor. And as I turned, startled, dropping the fork I was using to turn the bacon strips, Keith said in a voice perfectly brimming with portent, "This isn't working." Maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, but surprised I was. What isn't working? I knew good and well that, of course, I'd simply been taken off guard. Wait. What isn't working? I knew good and well what, of course, I'd simply been taken way off guard and was stalling for a moment to regather my equilibrium, which lay shattered among the shards of glass on the floor. This, Keith said, his voice barely audible. Us. I picked the fork up off the floor. Man, I cannot read today. The bacon burned, and I slid the frying pan from the fire. Keith swept up the fragments of the orange juice glass. It had broken cleanly in two, and dropped them into the paper bag beneath the sink. I knew this was the end, even as Keith and I moved like prize fighters to opposite corners of the kitchen. I knew what Keith would ask of me. Hadn't Snooki warned me more than once? Hadn't I come to expect it myself, even as I told myself everything was fine? And I knew I was in no way ready to give it to him. We seemed to be speaking lines from a play we'd rehearsed for weeks, or a movie we'd both seen several times. I miss you so much when you're gone, Keith said. I miss you too. I need to have someone here when I'm here. I need you to be home. Keith, the utter futility of this conversation struck me even as we were having it. Why didn't I just pack up now and save time? You know that it is the nature of my work that I have to be away from home sometimes, maybe a lot of the time. I know, he said. I just want you home with me. I just do. That's the use of having a lover. What's the use of having a lover if I'm going to be alone? Uncomfortable pause. So, the distance between my corner of the kitchen and Keith's seemed to lengthen. When had my life become a German expressionist film? Just what are you asking of me here? I don't recall asking you anything. You've been with me too long, I thought. You're beginning to retort like me. You want me to quit singing, don't you? I wouldn't ask you that. But you want me to. Yes. And you know I can't do that. Not now. Yes, he said. I guess I do. I must admit I had allowed myself to fantasize your saying, Hey, Keith, who needs show business? All I need is you. And I'd take you away in my arms and we'd kiss, fade to black. The end. A little smile raised one corner of his mouth. No, huh? Oh, Keith, was it incredibly naive of me to hope I could be enough for you? Keith. I'm sorry, he put up a shielding hand. That wasn't very fair, was it? I know your singing is important to you. It's just that... Oh, Keith. I turned and faced the wall, braced my hands against it. You know my singing is important to me. Good. Did you know that I've wanted to be a singer since I was 7 years old? That I knew even then that's what I wanted to do? What I had to be? It's all I really know. I turned back to Keith. If I'm not a singer, I just don't know what the fuck I am. You're the guy I love. I looked at my big, beautiful lover, and I wondered what kind of an asshole would give up such a man for the dubious privilege of calling himself a nightclub singer. My kind of asshole, I guess. I'm sorry, I said. Amazing how empty words can sound. Me too, babe. That was it. Over. Slow fade to black. The end. And as I recall, it didn't really hurt at first. I mean, I didn't cry. I didn't actually feel pain. I felt empty. I felt alone. But I'd been there before. Hold me, I said. And when Keith gathered me into those big arms of his, in what in any Hollywood movie would have made the very last time, a wee small voice, the voice of relative sanity, some might say, whispered to me, Now's the time, fool. Tell him that. You're never going to leave him. Tell him right now. So tell the man already. Hey, Keith, who needs show business? All I need is you, remember? And I suppose anyone in his right mind would have said that, but I didn't. I just said, I do love you. I know, he said. I don't believe we ever had breakfast. Oh, sad.